I have a viewer question. This is in response to the socializing events, how to behave in networking kind of a video. And Lethanos NG1ZQ asked, I have a question. I don't really have an internal dialogue like most others do. However, I find myself talking about myself a lot and end up not thinking of the other person. How do I control myself to talk about others more than myself? So, um, I think, well, not I think, the core message of my original networking video is that just be yourself, right? Because when you give kind of faith into that idea of being me is good enough, what's gonna happen is, will some people on the earth, will some people be really turned off by you talking a lot about you? Yes. But there are a lot of people who are actually thankful that you talk a lot about you, because why? Some A lot of people enjoy being in conversations, but they feel really uncomfortable participating in conversations. So when one person takes the lead about talking, even if they're just constantly talking about themselves, it's really like good. Moreover, um some people are like, well, everybody is interesting in their own way, right? But the more you disclose about yourself, the more likely that somebody else would be like, wow, this person is like really really interesting. Oh, okay, so they're telling me more things, and wow, even that's even more interesting, right? So I have a coworker, for example, who has like so many of these interesting traits, and every time he opens his mouth, it's just like another interesting trait stacked on top of another, right? And so, if you can really like own it, right? The best way to be is just be yourself, right? Because overall, the way you have to be in order to fit this archetype of a sociable person, to be that takes up a lot of effort. And I think when you do things that require a lot of effort, you really lose out on the long run, because it really prevents you from being sustainable. I'm interested in you having a really sustainable and long enduring life, because why? Your life is so like effortless and easy that it doesn't require a lot of energy. So because of that, that's what I propositioned to you in the original video. But your question is this: I talk about myself a lot, and I don't think about the other person. So let's discuss this matter at hand. So I think that there is a head level thought and there is a heart level thought, right? What I mean by this is, at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? I look at my clock and I'm like, oh, fuck, it's 5 a.m. And then, oh, I have to wake up. Oh no, I have to wake up. Oh, oh, I really need to wake up. So if I'm having this internal dialogue in my bed, right? It tells me that in my head, I really, really want to wake up. But in my heart, I don't want to, right? Because if my heart wanted to, I would have just gotten up, right? So, usually, when the head and the heart are thinking separate things, the heart usually wins. So, generalize that a little more. Whatever you're experiencing in your life is kind of a reflection of your heart level beliefs, okay? So, this is kind of the hypothesis that I want you to play around with. So you talk about yourself a lot, right? And in your head, you think that's a problem. In your head, you think you want to talk more about others. And that's a head level thought. But what I am proposing to you is, what if inside of your heart, you really, 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 really want to just talk about yourself? And now, the point is, I don't want you to be critical about this aspect of you, okay? You want to talk about yourself for what really noble reason? For example, I'll give you some common ones, right? Nobody in your life really recognized and celebrated you for you. Nobody really like looked at you by yourself. You are always compared against, and you are always just kind of diminished. And because you never really got celebrated just by being you, inside of you there's this need to be like, hey, I exist too, right? So your statements are kind of a proclamation to the world that you exist, and that's a very noble thing. Another thing is, um, you may have parts of you that you feel deeply unsafe and insecure about, right? So by talking about all these other parts of you that are kind of more easier to surface, it kind of makes it easier for you to talk around that part, because there's a lot of other targets to latch on, right? So for example, if I'm kind of insecure about my, college, right? Then I talk about my high school, then I talk about my career, then I talk about like all these different things, so that my college never just gets mentioned. Because I distract people with all these things, right? So you're trying to protect yourself against these things that make you feel vulnerable. So these are all very good self-protective and self-affirming reasons why you might be really wanting to talk about yourself. So, um, this just is a good kind of a thought exercise for you to try. Assume that you really want to talk about yourself, and your head may think otherwise, but just assume that in your heart, you really have something to gain by talking a lot about yourself. What is that? Being curious about that, and being like answering that question and trying to fulfill that need internally. When you can resolve that internally, that's when your heart can move on. Are there other ways to move on? Yeah, but this is the one I really want to recommend to you today.